Ready.
Good morning. So I think we're really going to have summer. It feels like it's about time, doesn't it? Yeah, I think so. So today we continue our study of the spiritual power of understanding. 2 Timothy 2:7 says, "Think over what I say, for the Lord will give you understanding in all things." It says, all things. And that's huge. All things. Are you aware of all that you truly know at your core, the core of your being, where your true source lives and moves and is the essence of who you truly are? Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore said, "We find in humankind a knowing capacity transcending intellectual knowledge." He was talking about the spiritual attribute of understanding. And this is our capacity to gain direct perceptions from spirit, or what we call divine truth with a capital T. He also said there are two ways of getting understanding. One is by following the guidance of spirit that dwells within us, and the other is to go blindly ahead, learning by hard experience. You can learn both of those ways. Some of you know that in 2006 I was hit by a semi-truck. It hit on my side of the car and ripped the car door off, and I have a lovely scar to prove that. When I woke up still in the vehicle out on the road, I didn't remember what had happened. And to this day, I still don't remember anything about the crash. Thank God, I don't really want to remember that. But I knew one thing immediately, that I had just been saved from something for something. And in the following weeks and months, it was clear to me that I had just one job, and that was to heal. And I did that in record time with the prayers and support of lots of friends and loved ones. The truth is, at that time in my life, I was on the job when I had that crash. I was working at a job that paid big money, but frankly wasn't very fulfilling. It was easy, as jobs go, and it only demanded that I show up, be organized, and do the same thing over and over again very well, which I did. It did provide a service for people, but it clearly, to me anyway, was not my calling. During that time that I was in that job, one of my spiritual leaders had asked me one day while I was complaining about some event that had happened related to it. He said, "Just when did you begin playing small and giving up your power?" It was a really good question, one for which I didn't have the answer at the moment. And truthfully, had I not had the accident, who knows how long I would have gone on collecting a great big paycheck, but not doing what was really mine to do. The first thing I did when I was lucid again off all of the pain medication was to quit that job, not even knowing what was next. The fact is, this was a time when I had learned from hard experience, and I knew it. So I have since then chosen to follow the guidance of Spirit. And I suggest that you do the same. It'll save you a lot of time and probably a lot of pain. I always now ask for the answers in terms that I can understand without any kind of harm to me or others. And it works. Much easier, much faster. And the results, in the end, I'm pretty sure, are the same. Here's the thing. We already have all that we need to answer the hard questions, to know which way to go and what next step to take. It's all there at our core. Our guidance is so close, and it's free. And yet, so many times we don't claim it. We don't access that guidance. To do that, we have to remember some basics. First, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. Second, your entire life's journey is about manifesting your wholeness and your oneness with the divine. That is the basic truth of who you are. And finally, you are a child of God made in the image and likeness of God. But when you forget that, you lose something in the way your life runs. When I was the worship coordinator at Unity of Phoenix, I had a person there, a co-worker and friend, who was my sounding board. It's a wonderful thing to have. And whenever there would be issues that came up, as they inevitably do on any job, I could go into her office and just vent on her, and she could do the same. The wonderful thing about working in a church also is that you can actually stop and pray and hug each other and chat and then go on about your business. So one day I was in her office complaining about who knows what. And we had a prayer. And she prayed. And in that prayer she said, Betty is a wonderful, loving, caring child of God. And I heard that and I took it in and I realized that that's something I would have said about her and to her. We finished our prayer, we hugged, we went on into our day and the week. And then about a week later, I was driving to work, mentally beating myself up about some dumb thing I'd done, some mistake I'd made. I have no idea now what it was, but I was just going to it. And suddenly, as if on my shoulder, I heard her saying, Betty is a wonderful, loving, caring child of God. And I thought, I really am. And right there, it changed my life. And here's why. When I grew up in a family where I was not terribly valued. I never heard any words of appreciation, never heard anything like you're a wonderful person, much less that I was special in any way. And somehow I think I knew that I was special, but somewhere along the way I internalized all of that talk that I heard over and over again. And I had started to carry that with me, believing that at my core, I was a really not so nice, snarky, not good person. And what I was told as a child was that if everybody knew what I was really like, they wouldn't like me as much as they appeared to like me. And somewhere along the way, I accepted that at my core. But I had come to believe that about 90% of the time I had learned how to pull off being nice and good and appearing to be that really wonderful good person, so that people thought I was that most of the time. But then about 10% or maybe even less of the time, that snarky, mean, not so good person would rear its ugly head, the person I thought I really was. And when that happened, she said that, and when I fully internalized it, I realized it just flipped my life. It flipped my perspective. I realized I am a really good person at my core, and maybe 10% or probably even less of the time, I show up as grouchy and cranky and snarky and just being a human being. But really, I am a wonderful, loving, caring child of God. And it changed so many things. The things that had been challenges to me all my life, because I had carried this idea around with me, just kind of fell away. And things got so much easier. So that's why we need to know what we know at our core. It changes our life when we focus on who we really are, made in the likeness and image of God, who is all good and all love, and so are we. So here are some other things that you know at your core that you might sometimes forget. You know, we frequently say, well, he doesn't know what he doesn't know, right? Like, that's a pretty sad state of being if you don't know what you don't know. But I venture to say that if you don't know what you know as a child of God, that's even sadder. So here are some of the things that you know at your core that you might sometimes forget to manifest in your life. First, you know at your core that you're loved. Some of us are constantly challenged to remember that we are lovable and loved. We may have been brought up in situations where we weren't reminded that we were loved, and we carry these old shadow beliefs around with us. Or perhaps we've had relationships where we've been hurt, and it brought up trust issues for us. But you are loved. You are loved and cared about by people in your life. Just look around here today. Often you don't open your heart enough to let the love in, but you are loved by people right here in this spiritual community. So be open. You're loved by people you know and live and work around every day. But more than this, there's evidence that you are loved at an even deeper level by God. And this is even closer to you than your friends. You carry this with you all the time, within you. It's always accessible. Psalms 33:5 says, "The earth is full of God's unfailing love." John 15 says, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete." Romans 8 says, "Who shall separate us from the love of God?" And Galatians 5 says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love." The second thing that you know at your core is that you have free will. When I decided to quit my job back in 2006, no one made me do it. I could have continued on doing what I was doing. In fact, I can say for sure that rarely, with the exception of a couple of downsizing and reorganization times, no one else has ever dictated the path of my career or my life. As spiritual beings, we are incredibly free. We have free will, the freedom to choose our lives and be who and what we want to do. We sometimes forget this and give away our power to other people, places, and things. We forget that we always have options and choices of who to be, no matter what the outer circumstances. We're truly never trapped, even if it appears we are so. Galatians 5 says, "For we were called to freedom." John 8 says, "So Jesus said, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." The next thing that we know at our core is that we are already forgiven. Psalms 103 says, "As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us." The real truth is, God loves you unconditionally. God is love. All God, all love, all good. And so God doesn't really need to forgive you. There's nothing to forgive. God just loves you. God can't be anything but God in this. It's you who really needs to forgive you. And be at peace with your spiritual self. Just like that day in my car. It was me. I needed to see the real me. The next thing that we know at our core is that we have everything we need. Living our truth enables us to manifest everything that we need, and our abundance lies within us. We're able to access and use all that God has at any time. We're eternally and permanently prosperous within, with God's substance. And when we say we have everything we need, I don't mean just material things. We're talking about all the things we need to manifest an abundant and prosperous life. Merle Fillmore called this inner equivalent of wealth, like rich ideas, innovation, imagination, and creativity, innate capabilities, instincts, intuition, empathy, and compassion, and the resources of the Spirit. You know those: love, joy, peace, kindness, faith, hope, generosity, and spirituality. Those all are the riches of the Spirit, the inner equivalent of wealth. It gives us everything we need to do what is ours to do. And then the other thing you know at your core is you know the truth with a capital T. And how do we know the truth? It's part of us. It's within us. We're born with it. It's the original blessing. You have that knowing capacity, transcending intellectual knowledge that Charles Fillmore talked about. You have understanding. When you know the truth, you know that you are loved, free, forgiven, and have everything you need. It all works together. So how do we find the truth? We go within, to the silence, to our source. We pray and meditate. And then finally, you know at your core that you are divine. And this takes us right back to our second unity principle. Human beings have a spark of divinity within them, the Christ Spirit within. Their very essence is of God, and therefore they are also inherently good. So, if we are divine and know it, what does this call us to do? To live our truth in the flow of God mind, showing up with all the spiritual resources we just talked about, It calls on us to use our power of understanding to move and be in the world, in relating to others, conducting our business and living our lives. As William March said, understanding is your ability to know that God stands under all things. It is your knowing how to accomplish things, and it is knowing with your heart. The power of understanding gives us our foundation. It helps us to move in the world with confidence, knowing that at our core, God stands under all we believe. It provides balance in a world with too many choices, too much information, and just a lot of noise. It brings a profound peace and calmness. Understanding makes it possible for us to relate to others to whom we might otherwise not relate. Understanding just makes our life make sense. So, to tap into this understanding that we already have, we again have to practice regularly the presence of God. We have to acknowledge that guidance system at our core. We have to make time to listen to it. And then we have to act on it. You can continue to go your own way blindly, learning by hard experience, but who knows where you'll wind up. The power of understanding is a great gift. So accept it, connect with it, use what you already know at your core, and you will manifest a life of infinite abundance, prosperity, and joy. Thank you.